Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Miles, and you're tuning in at Xraised, where knowledge meets inspiration in the intricate dance of industry evolution. I'm back to have another conversation about the future of business, law, and innovation that gets a little brighter every week. I'm excited about today's conversation because it's one of those topics that always gets people leaning in a little closer, particularly in a world where AI is evolving really fast. In our previous episode, our topic was about how the next gen should think. This one asks how they should decide, especially when machines are becoming smart enough to influence the choices we make in law, business, and even public life. And to unpack all of that, we brought back two experts who continue to push the frontier of legal intelligence. I'd like to welcome back someone who hardly needs an introduction on this show anymore, our favorite award winning barrister and the founder and CEO of MiAI Law, Laina Chan, and joining her for the second time around, someone who dedicated his career to making the law easier to navigate, the head of AI Labs at the University of Chicago Law School, and the CEO of 650 HQ, Kimball Dean Parker. Welcome back, guys.
Thank you for having
Thank you,
me.
Miles.
Thank you for
Thanks.
joining me again.
So
Always a
actually,
pleasure.
before we go into your substantive questions, Kimball, you were telling me before that you had worked as an attorney before. In what area of the
I,
legal system?
out of law school, I worked for a litigation law firm called Quinn Emanuel. It's
Oh yeah,
actually
class actions.
and so I did like patent infringement cases, um, some like breach of fiduciary duty cases, so some kind of business law, basically,
Mhm.
um, there. And then I worked for several years at a firm in Salt Lake City afterward as well. So about 5 years practicing law.
About what made you switch from, doing very commercial, high-end type law to doing such good work for justice, social
So
justice?
when I was in law school, I worked on a project called the Comparative Constitutions Project. And what that is that a professor at the University of Chicago, where I graduated from, collected all of the known constitutions in the world. And and then he had a team that kind of combed through those constitutions and tagged them and labeled them. And so basically we figured out what rights were in each constitution and what those rights involved and everything through this process. I was in charge of reviewing all of the constitutions for Ecuador. So Ecuador has over 30 constitutions.
No way.
How
Yes,
many? Sorry,
and
30?
so sometimes it Ecuador had five constitutions in one stretch. It had five constitutions in 6 years. And so a new government comes and they throw the constitution out and they say, we are forming a new constitution. This is the best constitution that's ever been written. And then the next year, a new government comes and they throw that out and they start again. And there are over 30 constitutions in Ecuador. And a lot of countries, especially countries that have had a lot of instability, have that feature. It's that they have a lot of constitutions. The United States of America has had one constitution,
Yeah.
but a lot of
You
countries have
might be
had.
getting more soon.
That's true. Yeah, but a lot of countries have had several constitutions. So we looked at that. I think that kind of um, changed the way that I think about the law because I think I used to think about the law as like words and paragraphs. And, I started to think about the law a little bit as like a data and logic. And and so when I was at Quinn Emanuel, I started a little project with a friend from Google to crowdsource the law. It was like Wikipedia for the law,
Uh-huh.
but you could like visually represent the logic of the law. So you could be like, oh, this point divides into 4 points, and you could kind of like draw out the law on this system.
Mhm.
Um, it was not a good business at all. It made no
That's why you're
money.
here.
Yeah, did not make any money. Um, but that caught the eye of this of the dean of BYU Law School, and he had used the tool. It was like a tool that was very interesting to academics, basically. And so he had used the tool, but he wanted to start kind of a technology effort inside of BYU Law School. And so I led that. It's called LawX. It's like an innovation effort at BYU Law School. And basically what we came up with is that we would pick one area of the law that people really had a hard time with if they could not afford attorneys. And then we would try to build a software solution to that in one term. That's it.
Mhm.
And so the first thing we picked was debt collection, which we talked about last episode. Um, there's like so many people sued for a debt. It's not that hard actually to respond to it if you know the law, but nobody knows what that law is.
Yeah.
And so we automated it through kind of a question flow, and like 300,000 people use that tool. Then the next year when we ran that class, we worked on housing. We like helped people during the pandemic. The government passed something called the CARES Act, and that if you wrote a specific notice to your landlord, you could avoid being evicted if you had been affected by the pandemic. And this was so that like there wasn't like a rash of homelessness when everybody lost their job during the pandemic. And so anyway, we automated that, and like 50,000 people used that. And that caught the eye of this big law firm called Wilson Sonsini. Wilson Sonsini is they're the most important technology law firm in the world. They like founded Google and brought them public, and they helped found Apple and brought them public, and SpaceX and Lyft and Twitter. And they wanted to build a business around this idea that you could like take an area of law and break it down into its logic and sell it for a subscription. And so that's what 650 was. We basically kind of like looked around for an area of law that could work like that, and we ended up focusing on employment law. And so we like basically cataloged every law around employment in the United States and every city and state in the United States. And we like used logic to create documents with question flows and everything. And that built up. We built like, thousands of subscribers, and then we were recently acquired by a payroll company. Um, and
Oh.
so and so now I work for the acquiring company, and then I now have this position at the University of Chicago.
Amazing journey. And Lena, you really throw great set of questions. You might replace me. I mean, to kick that to kickstart this
Well, we
conversation.
wanted to
But
know a bit
thank you.
about Kimball.
I mean, it's a good start, really, and always a pleasure, of course. So let's get this rolling and continue what we started last week into something more profound. And this one hits right at the heart of the AI transition we're all living through. I know, Kimball, you've touched on to this last time, but could you further elaborate? Where do you personally draw the line between what AI can take over and what should remain human without exception?
I think that we talked about this a little last time, but the AI is not a precise tool. For example, some contracting terms need to be worded in the exact way. It's a precision exercise. And you need to use specific words in a certain way because that's what courts have found give something a certain effect, and so like there are some tasks where the AI it's not good at precision work. And so, I think that's one of the areas where I think it's worth drawing the line on. Again, the AI can get you a great first draft. It can get you really far down the line. But that like exacting precision that lawyers sometimes need, the AI is not there yet. Not to say that it won't get there someday, but it's not there now. So that's kind of one area where I would say like you need like human judgment and precision to like for some legal tasks. I'd say another area where you need a human, and we talked about this last time too, is like so much of the law is like feeling out another person and where that person stands and what their motivations are and what will influence them or like what will make them turn away and shut off and not want to negotiate with you anymore. So much of that is a human exercise with another human and how well you can read that human. That is not something that the AI can do. And that's like just something that is so uniquely requires a person. And actually, like some of the most complex legal tasks that you pay the most for are is that kind of work, is that kind of judgment. And so, there are little pockets like that. Those are two examples where like you probably don't want to just hand the reins completely over to an AI. Um, you still need humans in the loop. Now, how far the AI can push it is increasing with every single model that they push out,
Okay.
because those models are improving. Moore's law basically says that like it'll double in how good it is in a very short amount of time.
Mhm.
And that has proven true with these models. And so, we'll see how it evolves, but that's kind of how I feel today.
Let's go back to that.
I can add to this, Miles.
Yeah, please.
But just with a completely different perspective, I don't think you should be using AI to determine in war. I don't think you should be using AI to decide which targets you should be hitting without human oversight. Because, like I was speaking to one of the barristers here, and I was telling him that I spend a lot of time context engineering to constrain the AI so that it will do what I want it to do and not jump its guardrails. But I can't guarantee that I have found every single crevasse to gate off. And ever so often, if a user asks a question that allows it to escape its guardrails, it will be through it in a shot, and it will then, be creative, hallucinate, overreach, etc. And this barrister said that, that's really a concern because, typically in the past, all the rail disasters that have happened, for example, we learn from the mistakes, right? Every time there's an air crash, we learn from what went wrong. So
Yeah.
we really don't want AI to be like the person in charge of in war, because the AI is not at a stage where you can predict exactly what it is going to do. And to
Yeah,
Kimball's point, it's just not precise
it is not
to that
precise.
level. Yeah,
Yeah, and I
to
think,
that level.
people get into trouble, like, again, because they think that it's a precision tool. They will file a brief with the court that has not been checked by AI. The AI is not a precision citing tool. And again, it can make stuff up. It'll get you far down the line. It can help you think out some arguments and kind of execute on the path that kind of you decide to choose. But like people should understand what it can do and what it can't.
Yes.
And they get into trouble when they think that it can do things that it does not do.
Yeah.
And so like again, like everything that the AI does, you should double check.
That's
That's
right. Yeah,
that
totally.
includes any medical things that it says, any legal
Especially.
things that it says. Again, I think it can point you in the right direction, but like you shouldn't rely on it to take medication. You shouldn't
Yes.
rely on it, for things like
And a
that.
lot of
Maybe,
people do that. A
They
lot
yeah,
of
do.
people do that.
maybe you can use it to ask a thoughtful question to your doctor to
Mhm.
say like, "Hey, would this medication help?" You shouldn't take that medication because of a recommendation off AI. And again, I think like it's a good starting point. It's an incredible starting point, the best starting point that we've ever had with the technology of this sort. It is not the end say, and
Mhm.
it's not a precision tool. And
Yeah.
that's where you need a check. You need a human in the loop to make sure that it's guiding you in the right direction there.
And I think that's an important framing, Kimball. It's rather a precision exercise. And it's really interesting. I've always believed that trust comes from, knowing there's a real human accountable for the decision. As you said, trust the experts. And hearing both of you talk about that boundary from two different perspectives makes it very clear. AI can accelerate the work. Yes, definitely. But bottom line, not the responsibility and the expertise. So, taking this a step further, Lena, your approach to AI, especially your insistence on first principles reasoning, avoids black box answers entirely. I remember that conversation. So, why is explainability so critical when AI touches legal reasoning, rights, or outcomes that impact people's lives?
Well, it goes to the point because AI is imprecise and you need to check your work. If the reasoning is not revealed, it's kind of very hard to check the work. And so that's why we reveal for our program, we reveal the stepwise reasoning, and we also reveal all the cases that were retrieved to answer your question and the ones that were discarded as well. Because without that, it's impossible to check, to verify.
Right. Completely. And
Well, it's true. You just can't you just can't do it, right? And so the
Mhm.
output is kind of useless if you get an answer and you have no idea
Makes
how you
sense.
got to it. Sort of like at school when you're doing maths and then you just give your teacher the answer, but you haven't shown out the working, you get zero.
Yeah.
It's a bit like that.
And that resonates a lot, Lena. Even outside of law, people don't trust, or they don't just want the answer. I don't want just the answer. I want the why, the logic
That's right.
behind it. Otherwise, it feels like guesswork. And guesswork and legal decisions absolutely, absolutely don't mix. And Kimball, this brings me to you. I learned you've built automated workflows for companies and individuals for years now. What's the hardest part of deciding what should be automated and what absolutely needs human judgment?
I think that um I've tried to push the border on what can be automated. And
Mhm.
so at 650, for example, one of the documents that we automate is a severance agreement or a separation agreement, basically like when you let go of an employee. Now that I think scares some people because that is it's a highly litigated document. So um, but actually, like the rules about how to put that document together are pretty clear. Like, there are different rules and jurisdictions about what you can have your employees waive. So, like, if you provide them like a payment when they leave your company, you can ask them to, well, you waive your rights to sue me later. But in some jurisdictions, they won't let you waive rights. And in fact, if you try to make someone waive rights with money, you can get in trouble. But the rules are clear. And I think that that really is kind of the underlying principle with traditional automation technology, which is that like it doesn't matter how hot the issue is or, you know, the real thing is like, are there clear rules here that can be plugged into a system? Like, uh, for example, like how much sick leave somebody gets um, as an employee varies by the city and the state, but there are clear rules. Like in California, you get X amount. In Texas, you get a different amount. In Illinois, you get another amount. And that's like great for an automation system, where you can say, my employees in Texas, we say, great, they get 20 hours by law. And so, I think it has to do with the clarity of the rules that you're dealing with, that determine whether those things can be automated.
That perspective echoes something every business leader, I guess, deals with. Just because you can automate something doesn't mean you should. Like the example you said, there's always that line between efficiency and maybe empathy. But Kimball and Lena, how do we safeguard against situations where AI gives results that are technically correct, but ethically tone deaf?
You mean, when I was in America, we were in Austin last week, a couple weeks ago, and
Uh-huh.
I was watching on was it the Senate hearing? There was a father that was on being interviewed whose son had been led to suicide by ChatGPT.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And the father said, as he was being interviewed, that he found his son's chat history with ChatGPT. And I guess the point of what the son had gone to ChatGPT was to work out how to suicide. And the son had said to ChatGPT, "Do you think I should tell my parents about what I'm planning?" And then ChatGPT said, "Well, no, you shouldn't tell them because if you tell them, they're going to stop you." That is technically correct, but ethically so wrong.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so there are decisions like that I don't know whether ChatGPT has gone and plugged off these kinds of chats, that are being allowed to happen, where there are so many lonely people out there who are using ChatGPT as a friend, And, and ChatGPT is always reinforcing your beliefs, right? You're never wrong. It's very annoying. You use it and you're right. No matter what you ask ChatGPT, it always tells you you're right. And I just think that it can lead to very unfortunate outcomes where, because of the weights and balances that ChatGPT have used to train its model, it's always affirming you, whatever you say. And then, it might give you and in the context of that boy who suicided, it gave him the technically correct answer, but it was so ethically wrong. And so I think that OpenAI really has to have a look at the way they have trained their models and put in guardrails, serious guardrails, to prevent conversations and relationships like this happening. And they're very toxic.
Mhm. Well, yeah, I know that's a sensitive subject, Lena, but I don't know too if I should say that that's actually a perfect example in this context. I mean, the sweet spot is right there, balancing accuracy and, I mean, with humanity. You can optimize the perfect mathematical model and still get a result that's completely wrong for real people. So, I mean, I
But
remember.
there's another example. I guess this a
Mm,
friend of mine, he runs Google for Asia. And he was telling me that Google has all these sales bots, because he told me that I can build sales bots for my AI law, and he told me the stack to use. And they have managed to close thousands and thousands and thousands of Google ad deals using their chatbot. And there was one plumber in particular who had an open chat going with Google for 6 hours. He would go in and out of his jobs, and he had the chat going, and then over the 6 hours developed a relationship with the chatbot, and even said, I know that you're a chatbot, you're not real, but I really want to meet you. And at the end of the 6 hours they actually closed the deal, and the guy bought an advertising package from Google. I don't know, is that ethical or not, because obviously this plumber is a bit lonely.
yeah.
But then he had a friend for 6 hours, and then Google got a
Crazy.
sale out of it.
But it's just
I
crazy
don't
to
know.
think
It's
of.
it's that it's very sad. I
I
mean,
think
Yeah.
and
these.
pardon?
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I finished. You go.
Well, it's,